Homeless response in any community works best when it works as a coordinated system. But how should that system be governed? This is part 2 of our interview with Marquetta Body, Senior Technical Assistance Specialist with the National Alliance to End Homelessness. Marquetta has extensive experience leading at the Continuum of Care, or COC level.
I think the one thing that I want to make clear is that COCs are crucial to the work to prevent and end homelessness, because you need a body out there or an entity out there that is actually always focusing on that work. A lot of times what you'll see is people are working very siloed and doing things on their own, and there's not this coordinated effort. So, I know there's a lot of things that are happening right now in our country around the work that is being done. But I want people to understand that having that COC is very, very important. They are the backbone. They are the ones that are advocating on your behalf, in addition to making funding decisions. And we want to make sure we continue to support this work and move this work forward in a meaningful way.
I imagine with all of those people, it can be there can be challenges sometimes in making sure everybody's voice is heard. And we also know that homelessness impacts different groups differently, and historically different groups have had different levels of positive outcomes after interacting with the homeless response system. So how can a COC ensure equity and inclusion in their decision making?
It's a great question. Equity and inclusion, it really starts with who's at the table, right? And then it really shows up when decisions are being made. So we want to make sure that we're not tokenizing and just checking off boxes, right? The board should really be reflective of the communities that it serves, ensuring that the voices of those who are most impacted are included. And this means making sure that we are making meaningful roles with people with lived experience, right? Job carving, and not just participation, but like real influence, right? Ensuring that their input shapes decisions and outcomes. It also means using data to identify disparities where they exist, and being willing to adjust in response. And on a practical level, I would say that it's about removing barriers to participation, right? If you're going to have people with lived experience on your boards or those who are most impacted, you want to make sure that you're offering flexible ways to engage. And then you also want to make sure that you're offering stipends, right? Because they are experts of their experience and their time is very, very important. So we want to make sure that people are being involved in a meaningful way that really makes an impact on the work and is just centered around equity in those voices of those with lived experience.
So while you were talking about inclusive governance, you used a phrase that's new to me, which is the phrase job carving. Can you tell us what that is?
It's one of my favorite things to do. So what we identified was that, individuals with lived experience were participating in the work. And a lot of times we already had roles, right? Or we had things that we wanted them to do. But instead of just utilizing that traditional process to say, okay, we have a policy or procedure we want you to review, we were saying, what is it that you actually want to do? What are you interested in? And how can we make that a role within our organization or on the board or somewhere within the COC to help move this work forward, but also kind of engage you in a way that's meaningful to you, not just something that works for us, but that also is meaningful to you. And it really builds the interest of those with lived experience because they have many, many things going on. So you want to make sure if they're given their time, that is something that is that they want to do and that they feel is important in this work. So it's really about kind of carving out work that is important to them, but is meaningful to the work that we're doing as an overall body, and compensating them for that. And it's been really, really successful. And it's been something that's really helped move people from just working within that COC to better roles or more impactful roles like outreach and, just having those conversations with local government, et cetera. So that's what job carving is.
I love that. And it kind of gets at the idea that people who've experienced homelessness can do more than be advocates or be on an advisory board. They can be in accounting, they can be in tech, they can be in, whatever, because they're unique individuals with varied backgrounds. So you have a lot of experience in system governance. What are some of the challenges that you have seen come up, and how would you suggest that communities address those challenges?
Oh my, the challenges are real. The challenges are real. It's a real struggle. And I think some of the biggest challenges that I've seen in our personal homeless response system and what I'm seeing across communities is just unclear roles. People not knowing what their role is, uneven participation, The power dynamics between organizations is always a challenge, especially when you're thinking about the collaborative applicant versus the HMIS lead and the COC body. There's always some discord there, and there's the need for clarity. And then sometimes decision making that feels disconnected from what's actually happening on the ground, right? And so, to address those challenges, you usually have to start with clarifying the roles. You have to have strong facilitation, and you have to have shared expectation. There needs to be some alignment. And then it also helps to build stronger feedback loops so that providers are regularly reflecting on what's actually working and what's not. And then, what works best is when it's seen as an ongoing process. So those loops are not just a one-time process, it's continuously, and that helps evolve with the community and not just something static.
So a lot of people want to help address homelessness, and very often people will start up a new organization in their community, a few cots in the church basement or a truck that goes around delivering sandwiches. And all of those efforts are really admirable. How can someone who is doing that kind of thing get connected with their local system, and why would they want to? Like, what are the benefits?
Thank you. That's a great question. So for any organization or individual who is looking to get involved in doing work around meeting the needs of those who are experiencing homelessness, I always encourage those individuals or organizations to identify who the COC lead is or the COC board is to get a better understanding of what's actually happening in the community and what the needs are. We also see a lot of duplication, unfortunately, because people are not informed about what's actually already happening. And so sometimes, I don't want to say it can cause friction, but it also can it cause waste, right? If we have 5 people that are offering coats, what we've seen at times is that there's coats in the trash because 5 people have went out there to provide coats, right? So we need to work together. I would encourage your organization to come to the COC, learn about what we're doing, and then maybe if you are somebody that's offering food or you're providing coats, we can say, okay, this outreach group goes here on Tuesdays, you go there on Thursday, right? That coordination is really important because we want to make sure that we are reaching as many people as possible, and because funding is just so scarce right now, we've had a lot of changes. We want to make sure that we're making good use of the funding that we have. So I would just encourage to look for the COC lead or identify other organizations that are doing work like you and see if they know more about like what's happening holistically in the community around homelessness as well.